Let's go, guys. Let's see. Ride past Gwanghwamun Gate. You see there's three gates here at Gwanghwamun. The middle one was used by the king, and the ones on either side were used by civil servants and military officials. Of the four main gates to the palace, that's the biggest one. Gwanghwamun's the biggest. And each gate had a different use. We're going to be shortly riding past the west gate on the west side of the palace here. That would have been used for people who worked in the palace to enter. There's a famous west gate to the palace. We're going to be stopping here briefly to make a U-turn into the West Village. The West Village is wonderful because it has these little quiet residential alleyways with the traditional homes often, and it's just lovely and quiet. It hasn't been developed like many other areas of Seoul. Possibly, well, definitely due to its history of being quite a restricted neighborhood for security reasons, as we're very close to the presidential Blue House right now. In the past, only people who lived in this area were allowed to come in, and there were checks, etc. Making it a little bit difficult, access a little bit difficult. You're not allowed to build above a certain height. I believe it's 3 floors. So that's another reason development hasn't changed this neighborhood in recent years. place where you'll find little art galleries like this and quaint coffee shops tucked into the back alleys. And of course there's the big roads as well that pass through the major thoroughfares. But if you're ever in Seoul, my advice, especially in this neighborhood, would be to get off these big roads and into the back alleys. There's always a lovely surprise waiting for you. You can just about make out a mountain we're going to go up today. Just poking up above the buildings there. That's Inwang Mountain. There we go, let's head that way. Cool. Wide turn here. Now, I think we can't go this way. There's a blockage here. Maybe just Taeyong and I can go? A little bit wide for the pedicab. It's a great thing about riding in Seoul by bike. Well, firstly, there's lots of these quiet back ways, and secondly, there's lots of beautiful bike lanes on the bigger roads. And lastly, we're able to get into these spaces where a car wouldn't be able to go, or a larger vehicle. flowers here. Mugunghwa, the Korean national flower. So this is actually quite a steep little bit, steep little stretch leading up to the road that leads up Inwang Mountain. And as you can see, I'm barely pedaling. E-bikes really are, it's not because I'm superhuman, it's because I'm riding an e-bike. And the e-bike is assisting me. So this is the road leading up Inwang Mountain. It's a back road really, so it doesn't have a lot of traffic. And as you can see, the sky is blue and there's white puffy clouds. The sky at this time of year is really incredible. I mean, it's like a painting. It's a real treat to have something like this on our doorstep, just to be able to come out here in the morning when it's not too hot, still not too humid. Let's take a leisurely e-bike ride up this mountain trail. Best way to start today, I can't think of anything better. You can see there are some others who've got the idea too. We got a few hikers and some other cyclists come here as well. Everyone's wearing a mask. It is the law, and it's for public safety during the COVID-19 pandemic. So here in Korea, we're at a level 4, level 0, I guess, being the best. Pretty much everywhere is at some level, level 1 being the lowest at present. Seoul is at level 4, and what that means is we have to wear, well, everyone has to wear a mask in the whole country, but we have special other limitations or restrictions for public safety, such as we're not allowed to be in a cafe or restaurant or establishment after 10 o'clock. After 6 o'clock, you're allowed to eat in an establishment. However, or meet. However, you're not allowed to do that in groups larger than 2 people. All in all, Korea's been very good at handling the pandemic, and the young population has been really good at following the rules. Vaccinations have been a little slower here than one would like. But, we're supposed to all be vaccinated by Christmas this year. So, fingers crossed. Welcome. This is the Hanyang-dosong Seoul City Wall. We're looking down the wall, along the wall, which extends over the mountain in the distance. That mountain in the distance is Namsan. That's the southern extent of the city wall. The mountain goes over Namsan and around to the east, over Naksan, and then around to the north of a pointy mountain called Bugaksan. We'll be seeing that later on in the tour. To the west, right here in Wangsan, you'll notice that the city wall is much taller on the outside. We're looking at the outside of the city wall there. It's much taller on the outside than it is here on the inside. So the enemy had a much more formidable obstacle, and we had a point of advantage here on the inside of the wall. What a beautiful view. Okay guys, let's continue round to another view spot called Mumude. From there we'll be able to see a panoramic view over the city, downtown district. You'll be able to see the ancient Gyeongbokgung Palace from up there. So, see you there. Okay, let's briefly park here. I'll show you something awesome. The air feels, the air feels a lot fresher up here than it did down in the city below. Wow, what a view. So there's the Bugak mountain that I said the city wall goes over to the north. It follows this line to the east. Squat mountain in the foreground, that's Naksan. That's the wall goes over Naksan. Then continues around to the east over here. That cluster of buildings just there is that tall building in the distance is the Lotte World Tower, fifth tallest building in the world at 555 meters. The city wall doesn't extend that far. That's actually south of the Han River. The city wall is much more to the buildings in front. Between that Lotte World Tower and us is the East Gate, which we'll be visiting later on in our evening e-bike tour. So do join us for that. It then extends around to the financial district here at Jeonro, which is where we started the tour. Then the Namsan Tower on Mount Namsan, Nam Mountain. And if we extend around, you can just make out, just at the end over there, you can see the 63 building, very famous building on the island on the Han River called Yeouido, which is where the National Assembly building is also located. That used to be the tallest building in Korea and still very, very famous landmark. And then where we are now, Inwang Mountain, you can see the city wall snaking up to the top. Mumude, it says, what does it say on that rock over there? Inscribed on the rock is Mumude, the name of the place. It says 아무것도 없다. 아직 아름다운 것만 있을 뿐. Which means there's nothing here, just a beautiful space. It's just a beautiful place. It certainly is a beautiful place. Later on we'll be going down into that area over there behind the palace to cut across between the presidential blue house and the royal palace to the east village on the far side. But first, let's go to Buamdong, which is where, I'm sure you've heard of the film Parasite. Well, there's a very famous scene in that film that was filmed in Buamdong. Let's go check it out. A good friend of mine, an older friend of mine, was telling me just last weekend, he asked me if I'd seen pictures of Inwang Mountain after the war, after the Korean War. And I told him I hadn't. And his point was that it looks very, very natural right now. And green. However, a lot of these trees don't date back to being much older than the Korean War. A lot of these trees were planted as well by people to recover the forests after the Korean War. He said that if I were to see a picture of the mountain, I'd notice that there aren't any trees on it. They were all destroyed. Amazing. Can't imagine that right now. Just a bleak and blank landscape, he says. He described it. And there was actually a national holiday made here in Korea where everyone took a day off work for planting trees every year. Although as of last year, the holiday, it's still a recognized day, but it's not a day that you get off work anymore, unfortunately. It is still tree planting day. So. Here we are in Buandong. And before I take you down to the site of Parasite, let's nip through here and have a look at what we can find through this tunnel. Because we've been following the city wall since we hit Inwang Mountain, and this is a special place in the wall where you'll find a gate. This gate is called Changyimun, and of all the gates in the city wall, this one is one of the oldest original structures. This beautiful fresco here in the entrance, showing two chickens. So it says here the pavilion was destroyed by a Japanese invasion in 1592, was rebuilt in 1741. And from my understanding, it's been good since then. So it's been around for a fair while. Beautiful, isn't it? In the late 60s, the North Korea sent assassins to assassinate the president of Korea at the time, Park Chung-hee. And they passed nearby this gate. They marched from North Korea, all disguised as South Korean soldiers, and marched past this gate to just the other side, which is very close to the Blue House. They got within 200 meters of the Blue House, presidential Blue House, where they were going to throw grenades and try and assassinate the president. They were thwarted, and they went down into the West Village where we were, or they were chased down into the West Village where we were earlier, where there was a skirmish, and many of them were shot down there. We'll be passing a statue of the gentleman, police officer, who spotted the group of assassins, recognized that they weren't South Korean by their accents, and raised the alarm. He unfortunately was shot as well during the incident, and we'll be passing a statue in his memory to commemorate his sacrifice for the country in just a moment. As we go down towards the Blue House, I'll point it out. Okay. Possibly one of the most famous films to come out of Korea. It's put up there with Old Boy and other greats. It's the film Gisaengchun, Parasite. And just through here, it's going to be quite noisy. Just through here, we go down these steps, you'll be able to see a shot that a scene that you may recognize from the movie. The movie has a play on levels. It's a dialogue of different levels in society, social classes, and financial discrepancies between different levels of society. And the director, Bong Joon-ho, uses stairs and like physical levels to demonstrate this. And there's this one point in the film which you may remember where they've just escaped the house and it's raining. They've escaped the house that they were using in the way that they weren't supposed to be using, the very rich resident. And it's raining and they're running away, escaping down these stairs in front of us. It's a symbolism of the lowest, the family as a group going to a lower point, and it's the low point in the movie. It's the sad bit. Really do feel somewhat sorry for these characters at that point, despite their despicable behavior. This is the poster here. And you'll notice that the eyes are blacked out. These two, that's father and son there, the poorer family, their eyes are in black, blacked out in black. And the richer family here, husband, wife, and son, they're blocked out in white. So, I don't know, should I be the richer family or the poorer family today? Well, let's be honest. Such a well-received film, globally well-received film. I believe just shows how, in countries around the world, more or less the same thing occurs, whether it be Korea or United States or UK or it's this dialogue in the movie is something that we can all relate to. the Buandong as a neighborhood is being chosen as a film location for many films and dramas here in Korea, because it's got these quiet, it's a quiet neighborhood, these quiet streets, and unique houses and unique landscape. It makes it just an interesting subject. Taeyeon, what was the name of the Korean drama? The Coffee
Prince.
Coffee Prince, that's the one. Coffee Prince is probably one of the most famous dramas filmed around here. All right, almost there. Okay, let's go. We're gonna head down this street, back into the West Village, and then across to the East Village. See the statue here of Choi Gyu-sik, the gentleman who I described earlier, who's famous for spotting the North Korean infiltrators, 30 North Korean infiltrators. In the late 60s. This is definitely the most refreshing part of the ride. That fountain is right in front of the building. Current President Moon Jae-in will be there, present. And we're passing the north gate of the palace here, which is to the rear of the palace, and opposite that is on the other side of the road is the Blue House, which we're not able or shouldn't film. So we'll be respecting those rules. There's this wonderful bike lane going right in front of the Blue House. I think sends a really good message to Korea and the world. Where that fountain was in Sarangchae, that building there, you'd see a museum, Presidential Palace Museum, if you were to go inside. The Blue House itself, you have to make a reservation online. To visit the Blue House. Well, here we are outside the MMCA, which stands for Museum of Modern and Contemporary Arts. There's two main areas. It looks like there's two main areas to the MMCA here, but actually it's connected underground, and it's very large inside. It goes right down. The building on the left-hand side here is a repurposed military hospital, and the building on the right-hand side as well is also military offices, and they were repurposed to be the MMCA. In recent years. Well, welcome to Bukchon. Bukchon is famous for its traditional architecture. It's the east side of the palace, which would have been traditionally where Members of the royal family would stay, and the ruling class. Even today, the mayor of Seoul lives here, and the prime minister's residence is here as well. It's a place unlike the West Village, which many tourists don't visit. The East Village here, Bukchon, is heaving with tourism in an ordinary year. And what people come to see is where we're going right now, the Bukchon Hanok village. So you may have noticed the taxi back there. They have a tough time with in these older neighborhoods with the smaller alleys. You can call a taxi on your phone. I guess it was somewhat in response to Uber. When Uber came into Korea in a rather bullish way, and there was a backlash from the taxi drivers. But people liked the Uber service because you could just order online, order on your phone through the application, and taxi service didn't have that at the time. So Uber was eventually asked to leave because of licensing, taxi driver licensing, legal reasons, and taxi service got its own app through a company called Kakao, and now you can order a taxi from pretty much anywhere, and you put it in where you're going and where you are, and the taxi will show up in a few minutes. It's a wonderful service, and you get the taxi driver's information and you get your receipt that way. So it's just very convenient and safe. So gone are the days where you have to flag down a taxi, which was very difficult at the time, but maybe even more difficult now because people use the reservation system, which is very easy. Well, come on in. Let's take a little walk through Bukchon Hanok village. It's lovely and quiet today. So this neighborhood is old and traditional as it looks, and it is old and it is traditional, but it's actually being redeveloped, and it was redeveloped during a period of Japanese control in Korea, and the fear was that the Japanese, being the ruling class and the wealthier, were taking over this neighborhood. So the larger houses that were in this neighborhood were divided up into smaller, more affordable homes, which is what we see today. Wow, look at that sky. There's another, as you can see, there's a delivery on this home. These are residential homes. People live here, which is why I'm keeping my voice a little lower, as to not disturb everyone. That delivery was from a company called Market Curly, which is cropped up as they specialize in fresh foods, high-end, expensive food. It's an online grocery store. And the other major one is Coupang. It's famous for the rocket delivery service. If you were to order from Coupang, if I were to order from Coupang now, it would arrive. I don't think it would arrive today. It would arrive in the morning, about 7 a.m. tomorrow. And I believe if you order before 9 or 10 o'clock at night, you can get next day delivery 7 a.m., which is really fast. I think the next big delivery in Korea is, that's really astonishing to me still, but it was astonishing when I first came to Korea, and that was, 9 years ago. And now I'm still amazed at it, and I don't think anywhere else quite rivals it, not that I've been to anyway. But it's the fast food delivery, or just a food delivery service. There's a few big companies and some smaller ones as well that offer the service. But if you were to order, within an hour, or certainly within an hour, your food, you could order literally anything on the Korean menu, and within an hour you can have it delivered to your home. But the most amazing thing is that you don't even have to be at your home. You could have it delivered to a park, or just to your location, wherever you have. I could order it to where I am right now, which is really amazing. So if you often find people go for a picnic by the Han River and get on the food delivery application and get some food delivered to their picnic spot on the river. Get some fried chicken or Korean fried chicken. If you haven't tried that, you're missing out. These days, with the restrictions to COVID, to movement due to COVID, we can't eat out in restaurants after 10 o'clock, and can't gather in groups of more than 2. So delivery drivers, home delivery has really been the go-to alternative, and these delivery drivers have been really overworked, frankly. So it is known and customary now to, if you order food, to maybe prepare a refreshing drink for your delivery driver. And try to also pay through the application rather than in person, to reduce the risk, the contact risk for that driver. an ordinary season, this time of year, the street would be full of tourists dressed in the traditional Korean clothing called hanbok. You can rent a hanbok for a few hours, quite cheap. And if you're wearing a hanbok, then you're allowed, they will let you into the palace and other historical sites for free. It's quite unusual to see hanboks around, apart from on tourists and in shops, because majority of the time the hanbok is reserved or worn, shall we say, and during special occasions like weddings, and it's not really an everyday attire. This is just opened up. This is used to be a wall here, and now the Seoul Museum of Craft Art has popped up. Let's go in and have a look. Wow, fancy. Wow, what a beautiful space. We've popped out the other end of Bukchon here at a neighborhood called Insadong, another famous tourist attraction. Well, it's not simply a tourist attraction. Tourists do come here, but it's an antiques market, and it's historically been so. It's still early in the morning right now, so all the shops are still closed, but you can buy a lot of Korean traditional souvenirs, Korean traditional furniture and clothing in this neighborhood. Here we are at Jogesa, the temple, where this is the most important temple in Korea, I guess, in terms of influence. It's the head of Jogae Buddhism, an order of Buddhism. It's very popular here in Korea. this is the main temple. Let's go in and have a quick look. Best leave my bike. Okay. So into the temple, you'll see the white lanterns. These are in honor of the deceased, and if you put the family members' names on the tag there, and offer prayers to the deceased, that's where that goes. Here we are around the front of the temple. There you can see this beautiful tree, over 300 years old, donated by a scholar visiting from China. You just make out inside the temple there are 3 large statues of Buddha with their hands in different positions, representing a different virtue, benevolence, forgiveness, and health. It's the large drum and bell that you would expect to find in a Buddhist temple. And of course, right now, in the season of water lilies, we have the water lilies here, which is a symbol of Buddhism. Beauty rising from the murky water, not in spite of the murky water, but because of it. The smell of incense. And the contrast between old and new, traditional and modern. Unless you look up, it's easy to forget that you're in the middle of a metropolitan city. This ancient tree, over 500 years old, white lacebark pine, one of the few in the city. Ancient organism. Beautiful color on the temple here. You only really see, you'll notice when we were in the Hanok village in Bukchon, or you saw the Hanok traditional houses in the West Village as well as the East Village, they didn't have this color. This color is put on temples and traditional royal buildings. But it is, looking closely, it is different from the royal buildings in that when you look closely at the temple, the decorations are definitely depicting a story. There's a message there. These panels all show Buddha's journey, Buddha's life. and off we go. How are we doing for time? Let's go back to where we started, and I'll say our final farewell on. Should we go back to the bridge and say farewell? Yes. Okay. Well, we'll say our final farewell until the next time on Gwangtongyo, where we started. So let's hop on our bikes and head back to the Cheonggyecheon River. I mean, what a contrast. I've stepped out of that peaceful, idyllic other world of the temple into this high-rise glass, busy downtown district. It's quite a contrast. Here we are on a street called Jongno, which is same as the neighborhood we're in, Jongno district. Jongno translates to Bell Street, and the reason it's called Bell Street is because there's a big bell on the street, just in the building we'll be passing by shortly. The building's called Boshingak, and the bell inside Boshingak was rung to let citizens of inside the city wall know what time it was, when the gates were open, closed, curfews, etc. It was a way of communicating with the population. These days it's rung famously on New Year. Would gather here on this road, the road is shut, and people will gather, there's performances and fireworks and etc., and the bell is rung there. Last year, last New Year, due to the COVID situation, people were encouraged not to gather here, and they didn't perform the usual celebrations at Boshingak. Oop. And if you're wondering where that bell is, you'll see it just in the building over here on the other side of the road. And that location was chosen because it's the center of the ancient city. back here on Cheonggyecheon River. Wonderful space, public space to hang out, and a refreshing place to dip your toes in the water. This is where we'll be ending our tour, back where we started on Gwangcheong Bridge. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you can join us again this evening for the evening e-bike tour, where we'll be following Cheonggyecheon down to the east gate and checking out what this neighborhood's like in the evening when the lights go out. So hopefully I'll see you then. I hope you've enjoyed the tour with us. There's Kevin. Here's our long-suffering cameraman, Taeyong. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.